The film is a stylized study of the days of a killer after something goes terribly wrong, leaving him to defend himself. Michael Fassbender stars in, and as the killer, and the Irish actor is a delight to watch. The film begins in Paris in the first chapter. The assassin awaits his target's arrival and goes about his boring day as we hear his inner voice, in very Fincher style, begins with the anonymous killer waiting for a week for the arrival of a target. He mentions obtaining McDonald's for breakfast and how his job takes patience, because waiting is a tedious activity. It's a gorgeous day in Paris, but the assassin has no option but to wait. On day 6, he receives an ultimatum to complete the assignment within the following 24 hours. Fortunately for him, the target comes that night, but he's with a woman. The woman dances in front of the window as the killer waits for his heartbeat to calm to the ideal pace for the shot. During his wait, the variable, the woman, gets in the way of his shot, indicating that he had failed the mission. The killer doesn't believe in nonsense like chance, karma, or justice, and he has a rhyme he recites right before committing his crime. These rules include not trusting anyone, fighting the fight only if it's paid for, anticipating over improvisation, never giving the other person an advantage, and most importantly, never empathizing because it's a weakness. According to the killer, this is the key to success, at least in his line of work. After missing his target, the killer has lost the window of opportunity. But not just for himself. Of course, said victim is going to be well protected with a target on his back. The murderer returns to his hidden lair in the Dominican Republic to find it in ruins and his lover missing. This film has evolved from a huntsman thriller to a revenge story. They have no right to touch my girl. They will be required to pay for this. Magdala, the killer's ladylove, looks terrible in the hospital, battered and beaten. She assures him that she did not mention anything about him. Magdala has a brother who worries for her and gives the killer the details of the 2 people who conducted the assault. Through his connections, the killer finds the cab driver who drove the 2 people to his home. Leo, the cab driver, gives him all the details he needs. A man who had too much adrenaline and needed to be leeched, and a woman who looked like a Q-tip were his customers. They asked him to wait an hour at the house he drove to and take them back to the airport. The man was hurt in the house, bleeding from his leg, but Leo drove them to the airport. After hearing him out, the killer shoots Leo cleanly through the head. New Orleans is where the killer goes next. This is where it all began when the killer was hoping to be a lawyer, but ended up becoming a cold-blooded assassin instead. Not too big of a difference. No? Hodges is the guy who gets the clients, and the killer executes for him. By now, we know that the killer is already breaking his rules, thanks to things getting very personal after the chaos of the missed target. He makes it into Hodges' office rather easily, and gets the assistant Dolores, who looks curiously similar to the mom in Confessions of a Shopaholic, to do the tying up. Hodges has 2 laptops on the table, which contain all the information about the clients, etc. And the killer nails them to the table without saying a word. He uses the same nail gun to pop some nails in the chest of the 60-year-old man, expecting him to last long enough to give him the names of the people who hurt his girlfriend. But he's messed up again. So much for being perfect and all. Hodges dies too soon, and Dolores is the killer's only answer. She takes him to her home, where she has the information on paper and gives it to him. She knows she's going to die, but she begs for him to leave her discoverable so her children can get the insurance. You know how these ice-cold killers have that one moment where you're meant to feel like they're human? This is as close as it gets for this guy, because he snaps Dolores' neck and makes it look like she's fallen off the stairs, so the kids can get the insurance. This is where the killer has the most fun as he travels to Florida to get the big guy who assaulted his girlfriend. There's a moment when it feels like he's going to harm the poor, innocent dog for existing in the guy's house. But he just feeds her something to make her rest. They call this guy the Brute because of his massive size and overly energetic body. A John Wick-style action sequence ensues, and it almost feels like this massive guy is going to get the no-fat, perfectly shaped killer. But in the end, the killer manages to shoot him dead. The killer is pursued by the dog, and just as she is ready to capture him, he manages to escape. The film's most suspenseful sequence, he sets fire to the big beachside home and flees as another comedy character. In disguise, the assassin comes in New York to finally meet Q-Tip. She's the polar opposite of the Brute, and the killer encounters her in a restaurant where she appears to be a regular, knowing all of the waitstaff. The expert, as she's called, is certain what the unnamed man is going to do, and uses her last minute to tell a joke. The expert tells the joke of the bear and hunter, essentially telling the killer that he's destroying himself by taking up this very personal job. In the end, when he takes her out to the water nearby, she tells him that she hopes he remembers her in his dying minutes. She collapses and asks the killer to assist a lady, but he kills her in the center of the skull, in a highly detailed shot, since she was attempting to stab the guy and escape her fate. So much for destroying oneself, eh? The killer concludes with the last chapter. This is the point at which he flies to Chicago to meet with the wealthy customer, Claiborne. We see how simple it is for a man to choose the most expensively secure home. With a simple purchase from Amazon, Netflix approves of this. When the killer reaches the man who set this all up, Claiborne thinks he's there to rob him. He spends a good amount of time trying to figure out who the killer is, and when he does, he apologizes for the collateral damage. According to him, it was Hodge's idea to mop up loose ends without knowing what that actually meant. Claiborne, who was startled by the mishap, agreed to Hodge's plans, leading to the killer's girlfriend paying the price. Somehow, the killer believes the billionaire hedge fund manager with the stock market channel playing in the background on his large TV screen. He leaves him with a warning that if he were ever to try anything again, he'd give him a painful, slow death. In an epilogue, the killer returns to his home in the Dominican Republic and reunites with his now almost completely healed girlfriend. In his voiceover, he mentions how his work entails him being one of the many, and not standing out and being unique. Just like all of us watching.